Okay, we are on. So hello everyone, welcome back to Angler Singapore July monthly meetup. And today we're happy to have Shai Reznik to join us as the testing master to share about test effective development. But before we jump into the talk, my name is Chung, and I'm so happy to see all of you today. Let's talk about Angler Singapore. So the agenda today will be very simple. We have the casual chat, and now we start some introduction, and we come in the scheduled talk from Shai, and some Q&A, and then at the end, as usual, open announcement and general chat. The code of conduct is pretty simple. So we have the speaker today. He's join us. So be nice to speaker, be nice to other, and I hope we have a good time together. So the next meetup from Angler Singapore is going to be on the 3rd of August at the same time, like 7 p.m. GMT plus 8. And our monthly meetup is trying to be always the first Tuesday of the month. We have a channel on Angler Discord, so you can come in, have any question, feel free. We're here to help. We also have the talk will be uploaded to Angler Singapore YouTube channel. And it is also where I hosted some of the live coding and streaming. Also, if you have any issue, any problem, you can use this link to book a meeting with us or basically with me. Let's say you have any issue and you are stuck and you need someone to look into it together. Sometimes I wanted to help people, so that is what I come up with. Have a link so you can book a meeting with me. And the last but not least, you wanted to speak at Angler Singapore, feel free to drop a message on our Twitter at AnglerSG, and then I'll get back to you. Or if you have any suggestion for the guests who you wanted to talk at Singapore, at Angler Singapore, feel free to let me know. I will try my best to reach out to the speaker, and hopefully we get all of the awesome speaker like Shai to come and speak with us. Before going further, let's talk about some other initiatives. So first we have Angler Nation, and it is the initiative from Bonnie. She's turned off the webcam, but she's the one who created Angler Nation with a lot of amazing channel, and then we have lots of upcoming events. So we have inside many group, and the event that can count for is like the upcoming Ask the Testing Expert, who will also have Shai to join every month, one day. This is the list that you can see, like upcoming event for July. There's more, but I just capturing the short list. So you can head over to anglernation.net and feel free to have an account. We are the close community, so just wanted to help people, and people are nice. So if you're doing angler, that's where you should heading to, I would say. There's some cost, there's free cost, there's a paid cost, but the free course is very good content, and I also like learning some of the stuff, like again myself, to just strengthen my knowledge. So if you inside Angler Nation, feel free to jump into one of these and just revisit your knowledge. I think it is good sometimes. We start to collaborate with Google Developer Space Singapore, so they like hosted all of the event in the region, like APAC region, and they said it's the home for developer and startup. So feel free to check the website devspacesg.dev for upcoming event in the region. We have Singapore JS, we have Junior Dev SG in Singapore, we have Talk CSS, we have React JS. So the community in Singapore is quite like happening. If you haven't been to all of that, just feel free to look into meetup.com, and then you will see all of the group over there. And before we get into the talk, there's some etiquette. So we encourage people to speak up during the Q&A. So if you have any question and you're comfortable to speak, just unmute yourself. Or if you have any question during the talk, just note it down so that you don't forget it during the Q&A where you can ask the speaker. And if you're not comfortable to speak, that's fine. You can drop the question into the chat as usual. And with that, let's prepare to jump into the talk, but not yet. So we have Shai today. We'll share about test effective development. isolated versus integrated test. Shai is the Angular testing guy, as some of us may have known, but he also the founder of Hires.io and testangular.com and the GD for Angular. So I hope we will all have a good time today. But before I heading over to Shai, we always have the first section at the beginning to do a speaker warm up. It is specifically for Shai. This question is for you. So if you have to delete all of the application on your phone, but you can keep 3 apps, which one should you keep and why you keep those 3 apps?
Wow, that's you put me on the spot here. Let's see. I'm opening my phone. So I would leave the clock and the alarm, of course, because then I couldn't register to my favorite events and stuff like that, or forget to wake up to get my kids to kindergarten. Also, I would leave. I have so many. I cannot choose. Probably, I'm using Dynalist, which is a cool productivity note-taking thing where I manage everything. So I will probably keep that. All the social I will probably delete in a heartbeat. I wouldn't like think about it even. And let's see. Maybe I would leave the podcast addict app because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm going to open one soon. So yeah, those are the three.
Okay, sure. So in summary, there's a clock, there's the there's a note taking app. I just couldn't get the name, but you can drop it in the chat.
Dynalist, yeah, we'll write it.
Dynalist. And the last one is about the postcard thing. Okay, it's a great list. Okay, Dynalist. Never used it before. For me, I use Notion most of my time. And if anyone wanted to answer the question, feel free to drop it. Drop your answer into the chat. We also wanted to know what you thought about the question. And with that, I'm over to Shai. And let's start the talk today.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't prepare anything. So we'll just do it off the cuff, right? No, I'm kidding. Let's let's see if I can present the entire screen. I want to present the entire screen. Let's see. Okay, I clicked and I'm sharing, and you should see my screen. Okay.
Yes, I can see.
Awesome. Cool. So let's see if I can choose. Okay, cool. So you stole my introduction, but I will do it anyway. Okay, I will try to keep the energy up. If you can unmute your microphone, you don't have to turn on the camera. Just quickly unmute your microphone and clap to the microphone, so I will have a feeling of like of an audience. Thank you very much. Everybody.
Hi, Shai.
Hey,
we love you, Shai.
Yay, I love you too. Okay, awesome. So yeah, I have a feeling of a real talk. God damn it. When are we coming back? Okay, awesome. So let's start. We're talking about, I changed the name a bit. I thought about a more clever name, I think, testing your boundaries, because this is what the talk is going to be about. So let's start. Okay, so who am I? I already know, but I will tell it anyway. Shai is the Angular testing guy, yeah, like Frank said. I run Hires.io, where we teach developers how to test right in order to sleep right. Sleep tight, sorry. Yeah, okay, so this is what we teach, mainly Angular testing, and also a Google developer expert for Angular. And I do lots of, in normal times and not in COVID, I do lots of lectures and stuff and talks and try to incorporate humor. So this, but this time I won't do it. This will be a serious lecture, okay? So don't expect any like funny stuff or something like that. This is a serious topic, okay? I want to keep things serious, okay? Okay. So let me start. Okay, I don't know if you saw this ad of mine that I posted, which got a lot of angry comments, and people are mad at me for saying unit tests are dead. But I actually think we should retire the term unit test. I don't think the tests themselves are bad, but I think the term unit is old, and we should use more and newer terms. And I will show you why and how in this talk. Okay, so what we're going to cover why we need new terms, the new terms themselves, the pros and cons of each, and each strategy, and when to use what. Oh, okay. Oh, so sorry, I forgot to cancel the notification. I don't have time. Okay, so I'll just flow with it, and after the Q&A I will okay, so why doing this talk? Okay, what's the motivation for this talk? So I hate wasting time. Okay, this is me. I hate wasting time. And back when I started, I think this was 2009, when I started getting more like deeper into tests and started to learn, I was so confused because I read a bunch of conflicting things, and I looked for the best way to test my code, and I couldn't figure out, okay, should I write unit tests, integration tests? And sometimes they were like saying the same things. Sometimes I will read a blog post or something that integration tests are everything you'll ever need, and mocks is like the worst mistake you can do. You're doing it wrong, right? And other people said the unit tests are the real thing. You should only write unit tests, and I couldn't figure out. And I started reading books, and if you read the test-driven development, it talks about one thing, and if you read the Goose book, the Growing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Test, I need to learn how to say it faster. You will read different things. So you'll read like you have the Detroit versus the London School, or classicists versus mockists, and bottom-up versus top-down. All these methodologies for unit testing that and test-driven development that talk about different things or different approaches to the same term, unit test. Also from Martin Fowler wiki about testing and development, you have solitary or sociable, where you can see that a unit test sometimes is a solitary test, okay, where you fake all of its dependencies, and sometimes it's sociable, where you test a bunch of classes together. So when you speak with people, or I do consulting, so I come to a new company, and I talk about like unit tests, or when I used to talk about unit tests, people got it wrong or differently, not wrong. So sometimes it means isolated, sometimes it means integrated. So I got confused when I learned about it. This is me confused. Okay. So I tried both approaches. I tried everything. I wasted a lot of time, and I kept had this feeling of trying to implement one thing, like the blanket is too short. I cannot like keep the covering like everything. Every time I try a new technique, I lose something else, and I hate this feeling. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so then, like, in the end of the day, what I really wanted is to do more meaningful work, to upgrade my skills, like as a developer, and to live a balanced life. And what prevented me from doing that were unexpected bugs, of course. So I kept like wasting time on trying to fix them, and not spending time at home. Okay, so I had a lot of stress, like coming back every time there was a bug, like coming back to the office and try to fix it, and breaking production, stuff like that. And when I try to apply all these techniques, I realized that it's not the only thing that prevent me or from getting to these goals, but also the inefficient tests. Okay, that's the second thing. Like using the wrong technique led to me switching from wasting my time on unexpected bugs to wasting my time on inefficient tests. And then I thought, okay, what do I need in order to cover both of these? So if we're talking about unexpected bugs, what can deal with them was like tests that test that what I call confidence test. Okay, so we get the maximum amount of confidence that you didn't introduce bugs. And in terms of inefficient tests, okay, what can find them is efficiency. I know, Captain Obvious. Okay, but those are the two aspects that I saw that I need to have in my test, in everything that I do. So if we think about, it's not usually we talk about only about or focus mostly about confidence, what will give you the most confidence, but we don't talk enough, I feel, about the efficiency part. So if we think about the testing strategies, tools, and techniques, okay, we sometimes have a technique or a strategy or even a tool that gives us high efficiency but low confidence, and the other way around. If you think about end-to-end tests, they give a lot of confidence in terms of like how stuff look from the user point of view, but their efficiency is very low. So what I learned is that you can never get to 100% perfect, right? But the goal is to find the balance between the two. This is what I realized that I need to do with everything I learned, and to question the status quo about how we are used to doing things. So then I thought about, okay, what could be a good name? Because I don't want to always talk about confidence and efficiency. What could be a good name for both? And the only name that I came up with was cost effective. And then I thought about cost effective. Maybe it could be test effective. And that's when I came up with test effective development. Okay, so this is what I like aiming all of my effort towards, how to teach people to be more test effective. Okay, so the aim is to teach better terms, better strategies, and better tools that will make you more test effective. And what I found also is that the more specific you are, the more effective you are. Okay, in terms of the terms that you use and the tools that you use, it's like a surgeon. Think about a surgeon. Usually they have specific tools to do the surgery, right? You don't want to get to a surgery and you meet a surgeon with just one tool, like a psychopath who just cut everything. So that won't be like that effective. And oh, sorry, I have one of my clients. Anyway, okay, sorry. Okay, so what I learned in order to be like specific, that tests, usually we talk about let's say unit tests, but usually we can divide tests into 3 dimensions. Okay, I call them the testing dimensions or aspects, and I want to quickly go over them. So unit integration, like I told you, are misleading terms, and let me show you why if we break this stuff into the 3 dimensions. So the first dimension is the action scope. Like how many actions are we testing at once? Think about an action as like a user click or like a method call. Okay, how many times or how many methods we are calling in one test? This is the action scope. The second dimension is the boundaries. Okay, where do we draw the line? When do we start faking stuff in our tests? And the third one is, what do I need to create? Like, what's the subject under test? Like, what am I testing? What is the object or function or something? This is the subject under test. So these are the 3 dimensions. And now, having describing all of this, now let's examine the unit and integration terms. So if we talk about unit tests, what do you think? Okay, write in the chat. This is interactive. Great. What do you think the unit represent out of these 3? Like if you think about the origin of the name, what best describe
boundaries?
Boundaries, Sander says.
Agree.
Okay, Jeffrey agrees that it talks about the boundaries.
No, that Sander said boundaries.
But what are you saying, Jeffrey? Oh, you agree that this is what he said?
Yeah.
So what are you saying?
No. I think it's also. I think it's boundaries. Why not?
Okay, boundaries.
Let's go for boundaries.
Okay, okay, subject. What just says.
Joe, what did you say?
Okay, let's see. So we have 3 answers out of how many people? 21. Okay, boundaries. Rupert says. Okay, let's see. Let's see what's the origin. The origin. Okay. If we think about it, it talks about the subject. Okay, so everyone, I know why you wrote boundaries, and that's why specifically why it is confusing, and we'll dive in deeper into it. Okay, but when you talk about the unit, right? Like a unit, what is a unit? When you Google what is a unit, you will have mixed answers. Okay, it's sometimes it's a class, sometimes it's the unit of functionality, which is the function. Sometimes it's mixed, but it mainly talks about what is the thing that we are testing. Okay, so good answers, and we'll see what is the. Okay, so now the next trick question: what does integration talks about? Sander says a unit is defined by its boundaries. That's partially correct, but in terms of testing, we'll see what's a better term for it.
Maybe action scope for integration.
Okay, so action scope for integration. So, so how many actions are we testing at once? So you think that this is related to integration? Okay. Giant says the same thing. The Malia says the same thing. Action scope. Anthony says action scope, action scope, action scope. Interesting. Okay, so again, what does integration talks about? Which boundary? The boundaries. Which dimension? The boundaries. I revealed it. Okay, so right. The term, Sandro says, the terms are utterly useless as they are way too generic. I totally agree. This is the point of the talk. Okay. So integration, we'll see how it talks about the boundaries. It talks about how many units or files you're testing in one test without faking anything in between. Right. So these are the boundaries. The action scope is talking about how many actions are you testing in one test. So it could be where you fake all the collaborators or dependencies, but you're testing several methods of the same, let's say, subject under test. That's why it's not talking about the action scope, and either of these terms is not really talking about how many actions. So I saw unit tests where they tested. You can find it in open source project when they test like multiple actions and then expect, and then another action, then expect in the same test. And so this will be like a multi-action test, and tests that are testing, just one thing, but in integration with everything. So this is the difference. Okay. And by the way, if you read the Goose book where I mentioned before, you will see that the integration test there stands for test that it's from your code to code you cannot change or code that you don't own, right? So this is their term or their definition of integration test, and that's why it starts getting more confusing. That's why I stopped using the term integration, and to describe boundaries, I started using integrated, which is kind of slightly similar, but for me it means more specific. It talks about the boundaries and not the external integration. And in that sense, if you're not talking about the subject or the action scope and only talk about boundaries, and this talk is only about the boundaries part, that's why I don't think talking in the term unit is the correct term. We should talk in the term of isolated. This is a better term, that describes the boundaries. What are we testing? Which type of test is it? Is it an isolated test or an integrated test? And how would we know which one? Let's dive deep into it. I'll just mention quickly that the other dimensions, I go much deeper in my free masterclass. Okay, so some of you have seen this. If you haven't, I have this like link, highres.link/Singapore, where I know that people came from this talk. Okay, so we are welcome to join. Okay, so we talked about being more specific and being more effective when we are more specific. So now let's talk about, let me turn down the air condition. Okay. The boundaries. Okay, let's define the isolated versus integrated, and just ignore that. What those are standing for. Okay, integrated. So integrated, as we said, we are testing multiple files or things together, right? And isolated, we're testing just one and faking the rest of its dependencies, okay? That stuff it imports or injects. Okay, let's talk about the benefits of integrated tests. So first of all, we're testing the connectivity between the things, okay? So how they collaborate together, which is good. Second benefit that we can test the configuration. So how is the entire app works together, like with all of its configuration. That's what we usually tend to test in end-to-end test. If we like change the base URL, something like that, we'll catch it in an integrated test, and we won't catch it in the other type of test. Now let's talk about the issues of integrated tests, because I think people are not talking specifically about this topic enough. So let's dive into that. Okay, so the first disadvantage is, or the issue is, unclear boundaries. Okay, what do I mean by that? When you go and test your big app, okay, and you decide, okay, we are only going to write integrated tests, how do you know where to draw the line? Let's say these are like components and services, and that's the last one is the server. Where do you draw the line? Do you start faking stuff here, or not faking at all, and then you will have an end-to-end test? Where exactly do you do that? And usually we're not talking about just like a small example to fit the screen here. Usually it's more dependencies and more, and we get to 7 layers and much more if we're talking about, if you're not going to the monorepo way or like micro front ends. And most of the apps these days are still big monolith. So usually these, we're talking about large scale and many layers. So it's unclear where you draw the line, because our main objective, to get the most confidence, is to cover more code path, the more like a path that the user will probably take when they use our app, right? So where do we draw? Do we fake all of the rest outside of the circle, or we just test these parts integration, or what do we do? Okay, so this is this problem, unclear boundaries. And for me, it's driving me insane not to have I'm very OCD. I need my strict rules, when to do when. And with time, you understand, okay, when to use what. I will talk about it in the end. The second issue is they take much longer to run, right? So because you have all this code you need to execute, and if you test in the DOM, you need to also compile everything and all the subcomponents, stuff like that. So it takes much longer to run. Also, it has a much longer test setup. Okay, right? Because usually we have more components, subcomponents, and they have injector services. And even if you fake only the external services, let's say only the remote services, you still are having to configure each one of them, and that takes our test into a much gets your test into a bigger scope, and also increases your setup. Okay, so then another issue is that it breaks more often. Now that you have multiple stuff, now each time each of them will break, your test will break. Okay, so it lowers the efficiency, because now you need to go back and fix those tests. Another problem, a similar problem, is the multi-coverage problem, okay, which says that when you have dependency with multiple tests depend on the same code, whenever this shared code is breaking, now all of the tests that are depending on this code is breaking. Like if you ever used shared module or something like that in your test, you know this problem also very well. And most of the time, it's not like 2 tests, it's much more. So that's another issue. Another issue is it's harder to trace down bugs. If you have a bug, it will take you longer because, depending on the size of your integrated test, to track down the specific problem and which service, and not all the time it's that obvious where it is. And also another issue is that it's hard to cover edge cases. As we said, okay, we want to cover the most like code path. So if we try to gain the maximum confidence from our integrated test, we want to cover all the code paths, okay? The happy path and the unhappy path, right? What happens when the service returns an error? How do our, component deal with that, and not just, when everything goes smooth. So, and other code paths as well, right? So that's that's we want to make sure we are covering all the code paths. And again, most of them will have a much more complicated set of dependencies, and that leads us more often to this situation. When we try to cover everything, but we end up like miserable. So we ditch that. So usually what developers are doing is they are, they go to the happy path route. Okay, so let's just test that this form works, and we'll ignore the errors or the potential bugs that could lie in our code, and then we get a false sense of confidence. This is whenever I hear people are talking about like, hey, I'm writing integration test for my giant app, I always like, this is what I think. Okay, you sir have a false sense of confidence, okay, because you're not testing all the path. So that's another issue, okay. And also another issue is the looser code design. So the point of the test is to give us the ability to, when we write integration test or integrated test, nothing stop us from, changing the way our code looks, right? And design, so we could take all this like clean code and turn it into 2 giant services, right? And I've seen this happen again and again and again. This is a screenshot I often use from one of my past clients, where we got to these. They called me when they got like 2 giant files, and they say, hey, help us, Shai, let's break those into smaller pieces. And like after years of like adding pieces to this giant service, and I was like, god damn it, okay, let's try to clean this up. Okay, so that's usually the looser code design issue, because nothing really shouts at you. The point of the test is to also nudge you in the right way and to shout at you like, hey, the test becomes too complicated. Now you need to, think about your production code. But with integrated tests, especially in large apps, you get like the mute on this shouting. So that's another issue. Okay, so then nothing prevents you from like getting into this problem. Oh, okay, sorry. The isolated test benefits. Okay, let's see. Okay, you saw this. Okay, this is a CTO. It needs feeding. I will not forget it. Okay, awesome. So now let's talk about the benefits of isolated tests. Okay, we talked about the issues with integrated. Now let's talk about the benefits. Okay, so it's kind of a mirror of the disadvantages, because a lot of the the advantages are the opposite. Okay, so first of all, clear boundaries. It's very clear what you're supposed to test. So in an isolated test, everything is, all the dependencies, the outside dependencies are fake. All the like stuff that you rely that are not inside of the same file. Again, in an exception of like util function or something like that, sometimes you're not you don't have like adapters for, or something like that. Most of the time, everything, all your services, if it's a component, are faked. You don't want to leave holes in that isolation. Second benefit is that it's much faster, right? You run less code, and for each test, you run just this class code and not all the classes code. And it require much less setup code because it's dealing with much less code, right? No multi-coverage problem. If this component has an error, this test will fail. If this service has an error, this test will fail. So it's don't suffer from the multi-coverage problem. Another benefit is that it's easier to test trace bugs, right? You know exactly where the bug is. And also, it's easier to cover edge cases. So now you don't deal with the multiple layers of combinations that the code path can go through that you need to test. Now it's only like the immediate dependencies that you need to cover. So you can cover what happens, when you collaborate with this dependency, and what happens with this, and what happens when it returns an error and stuff like that. It's much easier to do that. So you can have more confidence that you checked all the use cases. Also, another benefit is the documentation. So you get documentation for each piece of code that you write. So the next developer that will start and try to figure out what the input and output that are required or what are the conditions, they can, if you wrote your test correctly, they can read the test as documentation. Okay, and another benefit is better code design. Like we said before, nothing prevents you from getting your code under test bigger. Now, if with isolated tests, your test is immediately could tell you that this problem is with the isolated piece of code that you're testing, and will shout at you and will nudge you towards breaking the responsibilities into different dependencies, okay, even if they are not ready yet. So that's the point. The single responsibility files, which leads to single responsibility methods. That's the point of the code design that isolated tests give you. Let's talk about their issues, right? Because they are not perfect, they have issues, okay? God damn it. Okay. Anyway, forget about it. Okay, the issues. So they don't catch configuration bugs, right? When you test everything in isolation, you won't see the configuration bugs. You can have 100% of the tests running, but you won't see the that you misspelled something in the URL, or you forgot like a module somewhere or something like that. Your app won't run. So you cannot catch these with isolated tests. Also, people say, okay, you need to write much more tests when you write isolated tests, right? So you need to test for each part. And I say, well, it's not really, for me, it's not really a problem, because, you write the additional tests because you want to cover more use cases. If you won't write these tests and go to the integrated test route, you will need to still have these tests somewhere, right? So it will be just in one giant test, integrated test, instead of breaking apart these tests. So it's not really an issue for me, but people say it's an issue, so I wrote it here. Also, the main problem with the isolated tests are the collaboration bugs. So now when you fake stuff, you lose touch with reality. You don't really call the actual service from your component. You call a fake service, and that means that if the actual service will change, now your test will pass, but you will still have a bug. So that's not something that is good, right? And this is a main issue. That's why people are so passionate about, oh no, don't write unit tests, write only integration, because then you will see all these collaboration bugs and will catch them. But that's with a disclaimer that you actually wrote and covered all the potential combinations, and only then you will catch those bugs. And again, in a big and a giant app, you don't have any way as a developer to cover everything. So you just rely on the happy path, and then you just broke this thing. But getting back to isolated tests, you still have this problem. And so if you, again, fake everything, now everything is fake, and now you can have potentially have bugs with those. So the solution for this is to use what I call symmetric testing, which is to write collaboration and contract tests between each connectivity point, okay? And also add smoke tests, okay, that will cover only the critical parts. So this is the Trang, I love you. By the way, I forgot it was supposed to be after the talk, but okay. So yeah, so this is the, how to deal with this problem. So what should you write? Integrated or isolated? Okay. So my recommendation, because they both have their benefits and disadvantages, for small apps, the most test effective way is to write what I call flashlight tests, okay, which is a short distance integrated test. So think about the short distance being the small app or the mini module in your monorepo or like the library or something like that is short distance. You don't have a lot of layers there. And then you can write what I call flashlight tests. You test multiple parts in integration and you get the confidence from the integration and the efficiency, because it's not that big, you can still cover all the path. But for mid to large apps, and I'm talking about big monolith and stuff like that, I write what I call laser tests, which are long distance isolated tests, okay, which you can pinpoint with laser accuracy the specific class that you want to write the test for, okay. So these are like the stuff that I recommend. But again, there's more. Like I said, it's not enough to write only isolated or integrated. We talked about also like a smoke test and other stuff. So that's like, we still have more to this topic, but we don't have time today. This is the end of the talk. So still have like the must-have test type. We didn't talk more deeply about the action scope and what's more effective, and the test effective subject for Angular. What's better to test in your test in terms of cost effectiveness, and which mistakes to avoid, and the test, like how to add tests to your busy company if you have deadlines, stuff like that. So all this I cover, you guessed it correctly, in the cost effective Angular testing workshop. Okay, it's free. Join it, and we'll go deeper into these topics. Okay, so with that, thank you very much. I couldn't find a picture myself, so it was a leftover from a different talk that I gave. Okay, awesome. So that's it. I think we're on time.
Thanks, Shai.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so I will stop sharing now, and we'll go to the Q&A.
Yes.
Okay. Chapow.
Thanks, Shai. Once again, thanks for all of the information. And now is the Q&A. Now the time to shine, guys. I don't to I'm sorry. I have the Asian accent, so it's not obvious what I mean. Time to
Now
shine.
it's time to shy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said that you love me right now. That's what I understood. You love me back? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant. Yeah, seriously, anyone has any question, feel free to unmute and ask. Or just drop.
Hi, Shai. Thank you very much for this. I think I have two questions. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, first question is, I think a few days ago, I worked on an NGRX a component store, and then what I did was that I tried to make a lot of all my selectors and other stuff private, and I created like a view model, and made that public. Now, I was asking myself, is it right to try to test this private method, or should I just go ahead and test the public view model that I have created? So that's the question. And then the second question is that I was expecting to see Bonnie here, but I didn't see. I don't know if it's a it or a him.
Hey, what do you mean? We have Bonnie here. Bonnie, say hello.
No,
You
not
got the
Bonnie. You're,
Bonnie.
We have Bonnie. They
you're-
cannot be in the same room together. You know, it's
Okay.
either that, it's either Bonnie Brennan or Bonnie the Beaver. They cannot exist. They cannot
Together.
coexist in the
Okay.
You know
same
what's
room.
crazy? The first time I ever met Shai, the very next day he did this conference talk with Bonnie. And I was like, is that a coincidence? Is that like, did you name your mascot after me? And he was like, no, no, that was a coincidence. And I was like, okay.
Actually, the real reason I name it Bonnie is because in Hebrew, boneh, the word boneh is beaver. So Bonnie the Beaver. This is why I named. And then I met you, and then it was clear to me why I named it. It was meant to be. So let me address the question. The first one, I promise that I will have Bonnie. I'm planning on having Bonnie in every lecture that I'm going to give, and also live videos that I'm planning on doing. He's just he got COVID, so he's recovering, and then yeah. Anyway, so okay, so addressing the testing the private view model, or testing just the public stuff. So that's a question I get a lot, like, and I see so people are, when they learn how to test, they want to test like everything that is a method on a class, like everything. Doesn't matter if it's a public, private, stuff like that. But the thing is, the problem with that is, whenever you test something that is private, you are creating an efficiency problem in your test. Okay, every time you will try and change the code and refactor it, the whole point of test is to be able to refactor stuff. So again, if it's a small application or a small library or something like that, and you have only integrated tests, you can like change the stuff around, right? And without breaking the test. And if it's in a big app and you have like isolated tests, you want to change stuff inside of each isolated test, like cleaning up your code. Let's say if you have like a 30 lines of code function or method, and you want to break those into something that tells a better story. Now, if you just wrote a test for every single, I don't know, private thing or private method that you added, now if you want to change to a better name, or you want to break something into more things, now it's becomes a hassle and doesn't really provide you value. So that's why the best practice is to always test the public methods and not worry about the private method. There are very rare exceptions to this rule, and most of the time, this exception, whenever you find yourself trying to test a private thing, it usually means that you need to apply the separation rule, which means, if you have let's say a private method with a lot of logic and a lot of public method that are using the same shared code, this shared code needs to be broken apart into a separate file, and then you could add test only to that, and then you can use it as a fake collaborator. That way and it's okay to break stuff apart, not only to share this with other, components or services. Only if your component is using it, it's okay to break it apart, because again, it's for readability sake and maintainability sake, and not only sharing ability. So getting back to the view model, it seems like you need to test the outcome of your component, for example, from the public capabilities of this component, like how people will use this component, and this will give you, I think, the most test effective balance in your test. Cool.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that response.
Sure thing.
On the chat, there's Akash was mentioning that some company they focus on coverage. So if you skip the private method, basically the coverage criteria is went down and it just doesn't match. So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with this thing?
It's
Right.
such a good point too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the focus on code coverage, again, code coverage is something that you use as a safety net from the bottom. Like, let's say that you didn't like ignore a line of code. It doesn't really tell you that you covered all the use cases in that line of code. It just tells you that you didn't, some kind of test runs these lines of code. Okay, that's what it means. And this is another thing that when we're talking about test effectiveness, if you try to reach to like 100% code coverage, you will miss the point, because sometimes you have stuff that are ridiculous to test just in order to get to that coverage. Okay, so usually the benchmark that I usually see is like people aim for 80%, something like that, around this golden number. So they won't be like too rigid, and they will have enough confidence that they are testing their code. Because usually, if we're being honest, companies that don't have a good testing culture usually have around 20%, 15%, if they have tested all. Okay, and their goal is to increase this number until they get to the 80%. So your question, I feel, misses the thing that I answered in the previous answer, which is you should touch that piece of code, but through your public method. Okay, so it's not a matter of skipping. You're not supposed to skip the private method. The way to enter that code path is going through the public method first, and not directly through the private method. Okay, Kash.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted to add something there, but you basically just said it. If you have private methods in a class, they really should do something that is available from the outside, so from the public API of that class. So if you have private methods in an Angular component, that's fine, but they should do something that changes something, or in the template, or to the services, or in the view model. And so you can check those things without actually calling this private method.
Right. I concur.
Thanks, Sander, for the input. And Eileen has a question, like how often do you refactor your project? Refactor. Yeah.
Eileen, right? Eileen.
Yes, Eileen.
Yep.
Okay. How often Hey, Eileen.
Hi.
So your question is about refactor. Always. The answer is always. Like, again.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Boy Scout rule?
Leave it better, like.
Yeah.
When...
Yeah, correct. So you always leave the code better than you found it, okay?
Yeah.
Unless you are, in 3 a.m. in the office trying to fix a bug in production, and you don't have time to do it. Other than that, you should always leave time to refactor it, and that's part of what I'm trying to do. So always, like in big teams, I always like get into a piece of code, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, so it takes me like 10 minutes to figure out what they wanted to do, and then I'm like, maybe if it will be written this way, or maybe it would be expected, or I see this responsibility that needs to go, into a separate file. So I will always do that, and I use techniques, to write a test for it, to cover it, then refactor it, and then to seal the isolation holes that I created. So that's what I usually do.
Sure. Can I also ask another follow-up question? Do you have any advice for like organizations that are looking to get started in testing?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Join my workshop. No, but
Okay.
no, because there I go over like more deeply. But as a general advice, what usually tell companies, from my experience, is when you try to add everything at once, to a team that are not used to it, it usually won't succeed. So taking the approach of, hey, let's take a 2-day workshop, we learn about tests, and then we'll be like saved. That doesn't work in real life from my experience, because it takes time. It's like learning, hey, let's learn Angular in 2 days, and then we'll be like, rockstar. So it's a good start. It's a good start to learn like the terms and the basic stuff and the techniques. But in order to actually integrate it into the day-to-day, it's a matter of decision, first of all, like this is something that is important to us, a matter of goals, setting up goals, a matter of measuring what's the current situation, because people usually lie to themselves. We all lie to themselves. Yeah, next week I will start a diet, right? Like that's what I would keep telling myself. But we usually don't really measure the amount of unexpected bugs we have in each sprint, like how much. And I'm not talking about time, because time is hard to measure, but I'm talking about like productivity. How many planned tasks did we have for this sprint, and how many did we actually do in favor of the bugs that got introduced and were critical for us to stop what we're doing and fix them, or how many planned bugs from last sprint we have to fix in this sprint, and because of that we cannot get more features into this sprint. So measure this stuff, and then that way you can set a goal for how do you want to improve that current situation. So those are the first steps that I usually do. And the another principle is to take baby steps. So don't try to increase the coverage all the way up to 80% from 0 in 1 week. It won't happen, especially if you have a long-running product. Usually the thing is to take baby steps and small wins. Write the first test, get it to pass. As long as you have the stick in the ground, your anchor of like, okay, my goal is to reach this percentage of features instead of bugs. Okay, this is my goal. As long as you have this goal, you can keep improving. But if you set the goal of like, oh, I want to add testing and everything should be covered in like 1 month, and you have a big giant app with like 3,000 lines of code files, if you have the resources to stop everything and get all the developers on the same boat. But usually, again, it's not the case. It's not real life, right? Real life, you still have deadlines, you still have investors, you still have customers, you still have like business people who look at you like, what the hell is code that tests your other code? Like, what do you need that? Like, drop that, just write the feature. And most of the time we also like, we are used to stuff. We are used to writing code, check in the browser that it works, just click on stuff. And we're more comfortable with just writing the Angular code that we spend a lot of time on learning how to do. So now adding another layer of complexity to that, it's usually like, no, screw that. I'm gonna, not miss the deadline, and I won't learn this testing stuff. So measure, set a goal, and baby steps. Those are the key points.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure. Can I add something to this? There is a new generation of tooling now available, something called things like Betterer, that basically take the state your project is in now and will raise a warning when it gets worse. So if you have now like 10% coverage and you go down to 9, you are not able to merge the stuff. If you go to 11, you get, hey, done well. But if you go down, you are not able to merge your code, which is like a really, really helpful thing if you are in a larger team.
Wow, nice. It's from Craig, not?
Yeah, it's for Craig. There are a couple of other things that do similar, but the one that Craig has is publicly available.
Wow, Craig Spence from works at Spotify. Phenomenal. He's a great human being and a great member of the Angular community. I really love what he's doing, and he's a super smart person. So I didn't know about this tool. I'm gonna check it out after the talk. Thanks, Sander.
You're welcome.
So I think Aditya, raise a hand. Feel free, Aditya.
Hey, man.
So,
What about me?
You raise hand later.
Oh,
Sorry.
hey Shai, so thanks for the wonderful session. So I have something that I've seen on Twitter, a few days back that is regarding testing. So it was from Guillermo from Vercel. So he mentioned in a tweet, it's pretty old, but the tweet says write tests, not too many, mostly integration.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are
You
your
remember?
thoughts on that?
Yeah, you remember the slide that I had with the newspaper, right? Only integration test, and stuff like that. That's kind of like a take on this old tweet. So I think after like the point of this talk was to explain my point of view on the matter. I think that writing a general statement like this without context is misleading, and I feel that what missing in that statement is for small apps or libraries, write only and not small amount of tests, but I would feel that for like not a small app or a small library with not a lot of layers, I would like to have the maximum confidence that I get, that I can have, that I covered all the code path. So I feel that this statement came from people trying to test a big monolith with only isolated tests and no integrated tests whatsoever. And they got beaten, and they switched it and turned the other way around and said, okay, no, screw that. Okay, we're going to write only integrated tests and not that many, because then they feel the pain of the effectiveness dropping. So that's the statement from that. But I feel that this is a misleading statement for like as a blanket statement, for all the use cases, and it tends to get people to question and to get a false sense of confidence, because you say, okay, I tested the, I truly believe that statement in terms of smoke test, because this is the point of smoke test. But other than that, for your let's say single action test, I don't buy it. That's my take.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
So Bonnie, now your turn, and then we come to the Maya question.
I just wanted to add something about Shai Reznik, because I have been, and you guys know, like I've been doing consulting for years, right? And I know Shai from conferences and stuff, but that's not even what I want to tell. He's fun, but that's not the point. I've actually met many of his students, and it's because I was going from team to team and I was doing consulting, so I worked with a lot of different teams. And I can tell you from personal experience, and you probably know, unit testing can be very difficult because there aren't that many tutorials out there, right? And when you get into more complicated code and state management and RxJS and hot and cold observables and all that, then the more complicated your code is, the more complicated your tests are. And people just really struggle with that, and they kind of back away, and it's like, well, we have the functionality, and they kind of give up on their unit tests. And what I want to tell you is the people who have taken his course do not have problems, because they're able to write those unit tests. And he's not paying me to say this, you guys, and he is my friend, but that's not why. Like I've heard this from so many different people that have taken, like they're not intimidated. It's like, it's not a big deal, because it's not about memorizing things. It's about actually understanding how it works and all the samples and stuff like that, that they just feel like it's so easy. So it's been very consistent. Like you look at Fam's comment in the chat, like so consistent that the people who have taken Shai's course, like they really feel confident about unit testing, and then they can write those unit tests, and it just doesn't take so damn long anymore. They're just like, yeah, give it to me, I'll do it. And that's, so I'm just saying, you might want to consider. And he did not pay me to say that. I'm just saying, I've heard that from a lot of different people consistently over the years. And I have never found anyone who took Shai's course and didn't have fabulous things to say about it.
Okay,
So,
that sounds too good to be true, Bonnie. First of all,
I'm just telling you what they say, Shai.
I just transferred the PayPal money to your account, and I'm sure that it's not perfect, we have a couple of students of mine that taken the courses here in this chat. And so you can write what you think, even if it's, it's not clear or it's not good enough. I'm, as you know, from knowing me, from chatting with me, from emailing with me, that I always take your constructive criticism, try to add it back into the courses and improve the courses, because that is my goal. I still feel with all the content and all the things that I'm only scratching the surface. I only at like my 15% of what I am capable of doing, and I still have lots and lots of plans on releasing better tools that I'm working on. But I'm trying to figure out how to do this business stuff so I could hire more developers that will help me release more open source. So that's so I appreciate the kind words and warm words, Bonnie. But I'm sure it's not 100% perfect. But I'm aiming towards that. So that's my goal. Thanks.
Also, I also think every project is unique and needs a little bit different testing strategy, and it's really hard to give blanket statements about testing, because what works for one project will not work for a different project. It is really depending on the project size mostly, but also the project team, the background of the developers in the team, and the scope of the project, where the project is going to. If it's going to be a public project where everyone is going to take a shot at it, you have a different testing need than it is a small in-house program that is only used by 10 people. You can instruct those 10 people, don't do that, because we will kick your ass if you do it wrong. You cannot do that in public.
Did you hear that? Sander told us.
Sander is taking it to the
Don't
max.
mess with Sander.
No, I'm not messing with Sander. Sander, by the way, I must tell you that I'm missing our time together in the conferences. Sander and I usually spend lots of time talking about stuff and hanging out together.
Yeah.
And I miss that.
You guys are on a panel together in like 2 weeks on Angular Nation.
I know, but I'm talking about real life, like actually meeting. I wish I could meet everyone here, like in person.
I really miss getting cozy with Shai.
Hey,
Literally.
Hey.
Yeah, same here.
Hey.
But yeah,
don't be shy.
No.
The code of conduct doesn't really apply to Shai. I think everybody loves Shai. He gets away with a lot. There's a lot of hugging and kissing going on, and nobody ever complains. If Shai comes up and hugs you at a conference, like, are you really gonna get mad? It's Shai. How can you?
Only if I will cough in your mouth and I have COVID, this is when you can be mad. Okay, but I want to add, Sander, I'm seeing what you're doing with the open source and everything, and all the stuff that you're contributing back to the community. So I want to say thank you and awesome job. Keep it up.
Thank you. The same goes to you.
Shai, have you seen my work?
What?
No, I'm just asking, have you seen my work? Anyway,
I take it back. Trang, you are. Sander, forget about it, okay?
Hey, Shai, remember, we will meet again.
No, don't kick my ass. Okay.
You will again also in July 22nd, you guys. And I really hope that we can start having conferences live again soon, because it would be really fun to get together. We could have Anthony Miller come in.
Yeah, it will be the biggest party since ever.
Absolutely.
Since the start of NGConf.
Oh, guys, sorry for the interrupt, but I think, first of all, Shai, the link at highrise.io/Singapore doesn't work. I just tested it. For some reason, it's just so not found. So maybe you take a look.
I will. Let's see.
Is it?
Oh, this is the link. Maybe I spelled Singapore
okay.
wrong.
Okay, Highrise. Okay.
Yeah, it's not IO. Yeah, it's the
it's not IO,
shortened linked.
Okay. I'll copy it and then
It's a link.
Literally a link.
Yeah. So anyone interested in to learn more about testing using this link to register for the course? And I think we have. I mean, we're running out of time for 10 minutes, but there's a last question, and then with that, I think we can just end the talk today. From Devmaya. Devmaya, I wanted to unmute and ask your question.
Oh, I kind of think Sanders' answer covered my question, but I was asking Shai that when you said you refactor code all the time, when I do that, my teammates get so annoyed because they don't like seeing old code getting refactored. They're like, it works, leave it alone, because there's so much stuff already going on, new features, this and that. So reviewing becomes PIA. So I was just asking that, how do you approach it? I mean, you work on huge projects, right? How do you approach refactoring along with all the other stuff that goes on?
So you remember when I said that it's about a decision, or it's about a business decision and a culture decision? I think the main thing that I try to do when I approach, or when I get a new client, or when I try to help people adopt testing into their workflow, I always try to start with the psychology part, or the approach, because I feel that what I heard that don't touch it, it works for years. It comes out of fear, and the fear comes out of lack of testing. So if you can prove that a certain piece of code works with the test, then that counter the point of like, hey, don't touch it, it works. And another thing is to take the same baby steps approach with giant files. Sometimes it's not that, let's say, trivial to do, okay? Because sometimes it's so tangled up together that you cannot really, touch one thing without breaking the other thing. But eventually we'll need to do it. But so the approach there is to try to identify the functional parts, where the pure functions that you can extract without really breaking the code, or stuff that can be, again, refactored in baby steps, and not like a giant renaming. Because you, and knowing you, because we've known each other for a while, you want to improve stuff. That's why you taking the courses. That's why you learned it deeply. You want to improve stuff, so you don't want to leave the stuff unrefactored. But if you have a team that it's not in the culture, I would try to do these two things. First of all, hammer in the thing that we need confidence. We need confidence. First of all, we testing the current thing, and cover the specific thing that you want to refactor with the test, and then mostly we'll do it maybe with an integrated test, if it's a part that you can write like a smoke test for it, or just temporarily write an integrated test for those chunks, just to know that you didn't break it, and then only get small chunks out each time, until you'll get to a point where it's either going to be the breaking point where they say, okay, let's reset, let's restart, let's write it in a different, in a newer language, or in something like that, or they will say hey, we need to spend 2 weeks now making sure and run a full QA on it after the refactor and stuff like that. So to tackle that, I will take the baby steps approach, and that way you probably, if you can prove that you wrote the test that make sure that you didn't break all the entire other parts in the app, I would go that way. But you're right, it's a tough problem. This is the approach I would take.
And you'll write tests a lot faster after you finish the workshop.
Oh yes, I took the workshop, and I made sure that everyone knows about it. And we adopted all of the packages which Shai has, and unit testing has become so much easier. Like a lot of people did not even know. They come from AngularJS background where they only used to write end-to-end tests with Protector. So we recently adopted, like in the past year, adopted unit testing, and that was the first suggestion I made, that use this class testing and Jasmine Autospies and everything else. And it's been a breeze.
Great to hear. Thanks.
Then, yeah, like I mentioned, we are out of time for 15 minutes, but anyone have anything to add? Feel free. Now actually is the open announcement. We can slot in another 1 or 2 minutes.
I would like to announce because I'm just excited, and they're obviously both here, that we're going to do, so we already have Ask an Angular GDE once a month, hosted by mostly Sonder. Everybody loves Sonder. And people have been asking about testing, because the testing is like its whole thing. And so I talked to Shai, because I was jealous. I was like, Chung, how did you get Shai on your show? I'm jealous. And I was like, I want Shai on my show. So I talked to Shai and set up Ask a Testing Expert. It's basically like the Q&A. And Sonder's going to be there. I think the Cypress team is going to be there. And we might, if there's good demand for this, which there already has been so far, we might do this every month, maybe, if you show Shai a lot of love, and it turns out to be a lot of fun. So that's going to be happening on July 22nd. And Angular Nation, that's a free event you can sign up for with Shai, with Sonder, with just come and ask them questions. Super fun.
Shai, a small question. In the course, I think you recently launched the NGRX testing as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
We use NGXS in our company. Is there going to be a difference between how you test NGRX stuff and NGXS stuff? Because NGXS has all these selectors, and basically selectors are what you have to test with in components. So
I would say that the problematic part with NGRX and all the reactive state management solutions is the observables. Most of the time, that's what I see as the point where people get stuck the most. NGXS, to be honest, I never really used it in production, and never really had experience with that. So I believe there probably is a difference in terms of like the actual syntax and stuff, but I will take a look. I will take a look into it more, and to see what are the similarities, because what I try to teach in the NGRX testing course is an approach to how to test state and or how to test the state management solution, rather than being like focused on like 100% NGRX. So the techniques to test observables can be applied whether you're using NGRX or Akita, and I'm pretty sure that NGXS falls into the same category. So I would say go through the course and apply the same observable testing methodologies, because I talk about the newer way to do that and the more effective way to do that there. So I believe you'll find a lot of similarities and things you could use for NGXS as well.
Yeah.
If I could just say, the main pain point is in your Jasmine Autospies, you can easily mock observables, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have any observable. But with the NGXS selectors also being observables, Jasmine Autospies never picks up, even if I provide them in the observables array. So maybe we can take this up in a separate thread or something. But
so what I urge you to do, is to open up an issue.
Okay.
In Autospies with the specific example that we can simulate, and then we could maybe we should add a feature to Autospies to support this use case, and that way you can get all the features just with a minor tweak or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, will do.
Okay, awesome.
I want to add that basically all the state libraries are doing the same kind of thing, and they are using similar techniques. So what works for NGRX also works for Akita, and also work for NGXS, and for all the other things. The names are a little bit different, but the whole technology and the whole selectors, actions, things, it's the same all over the place. And the one of the libraries is a little bit easier on the boilerplate. One of the libraries is a little bit faster, but that doesn't really make any difference for testing.
By the way, I'm looking at the documentation as we speak. I agree totally with Sander. I'm looking at the documentation, and it seems like the selectors are decorators, and the properties, there are properties instead of methods. And if you look at the NGRX testing course, I show how to. And also, if you look at, you don't need to be a student. You can check the documentation for AutoSpice. You will see how to add tests for observable properties. So you can, it's a configuration that you already have. You can, like, I'm saying, like, let's say you have, like, I don't know, animals, dollar, right? Like for your observable, you can just add it when you create the spy, and it will automatically create the observable spy for you in the same creation. So I believe you're already covered. You don't even have to open up an issue. Check the configuration option, and if it doesn't work, open up an issue and we'll figure it out. Cool?
Cool, I think. Sorry for interrupt, but yeah, we are so out of time, and I don't want to keep everyone here with us. But I know it's interesting to have all of you guys today. And yeah, with
It's
that,
totally interesting. This is why we're all still here.
that's why we still like the full house still there. But yeah, okay, we have the upcoming Ask the testing expert. So we jump in until another two weeks, and we have more time to discuss that. With that, I would like to end the meetup today. I hope all of you has a great time together, and that I do a waving hand. And I will stop the recording. Thanks, guys.
Okay, awesome. I wrote in the chat.
John. Thanks, Shai.
Thank you, everyone. I wrote in the chat the specific thing, the Malia. So check it out. See if it works for you. It's not observable testing. It's specifically how to mock the selectors. I feel this could solve your problem. If not, write me an issue. Cool?
You cannot stop him from teaching, Chung.
Yeah.
That's
Just to get back on that, I use exactly this one, observable props to spy on, but somehow it doesn't pick up NGXS selectors. So maybe I'll open a GitHub.
Yeah, open an issue with the how to reproduce, and we'll figure it out.
Thanks, Sean.
So probably
Okay.
the issue.
Love you too, Ian.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.